We've heard it said many times that some board games feel more like work than fun. Well, tonight we're going to be talking about the games that don't quite cross that line. The heaviest board games out there that we actually enjoy.
Welcome to episode 284 of the Tabletop Bellhop Gaming Podcast. Now, besides sharing our favorite heavy board games, we've also got first thoughts on Castle Raisers, which is a game that's at the pretty much other end of the scale. It's more of a family weight game. We're going to be sharing some more thoughts on T-Witches, which is a rather heavy game, at least when looking at games from the OP. And then we've got two reviews that I do think fit the topic pretty well. They're not super heavy, but heavy enough. We've got House of Fado from Eagle-Gryphon Games and Kutna Hora from Czech Games Edition, or CGE.
First, we should introduce ourselves. I'm Sean, your host, and with me, Deanna.
Hey to all the bellhop boarders out there.
And of course, Mo, the tabletop bellhop himself.
I am Mo Tuzno, the Tabletop Bellhop, your cardboard concierge, helping you make your game nights better.
While we like to record Wednesday nights, it's definitely not that tonight, but normally Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, live at twitch.tv/tabletopbellhop, and we love it when people join us in the lobby, our chat room here on Twitch.
Yeah, this week's a mess. I don't even know what day of the week it is today. I don't know when this is coming out. I don't know.
You definitely thought it was Thursday earlier. I caught you on it. Okay. Now, some housekeeping. First, disclosure. Wherever you're watching or listening to this, any links you see are most likely affiliate links. Whenever you use one of our affiliate links, it costs you nothing extra and it helps to support the show. Speaking of supporting the show, I want to acknowledge that this episode exists because of the support of our awesome Patreon patrons. And if you want to be part of the Patreon crew, you can head over to tabletopbellhop.com/Patreon. And finally, I want to point out that you can find links to absolutely everything that we talk about in this episode in our show notes. So if you're listening and you find yourself thinking, what was that publisher they mentioned? What's the name of the game again? How do you spell that? You just need to head over to tabletopbellhop.com/episode 284, and you'll find everything you need right there in the show notes.
Well, we've got one big announcement for the locals before we get to our topic of meaty board games.
All right, so we're super excited to announce that we're going to actually have a special guest from Outset Media Games at our next Brews and Board Games game night at the Walkerville Brewery. That's hitting on Thursday, October 16th, so coming up very soon. So
George, one of the reps from Outset, is coming down to Windsor to show off some of their games and some of the games that Outset has to offer. And in addition to bringing some horror and Halloween themed games along to demo, they're also going to be bringing lots of swag and games for us to raffle off during the night.
It's great to have a publisher directly supporting one of our local game nights, and we're hyped. Yeah. We can't wait to show them how awesome the Windsor gaming community is, and we want you to be a part of it.
I'm also hoping that maybe this will encourage some people to take a trip across the border, maybe drive down from London, Toronto, Chatham. I don't know. Might be worth the drive. I think this one's going to be worth filling up the halls with maybe a little bit more local area than we normally get out.
I mean, technically, I think George is driving down from Toronto. So, I mean, clearly they think it's worth it. So, all right. Since we've got you locals paying attention, just a quick reminder that our first ever Proto-Win Game Design Lab, which is going to be a Proto-Spiel style game designer night, it's coming up on Tuesday, October 14th, and it's going to be from 5 to 9 at Hidden Trail Experiences. And we're hoping that all kinds of local designers and people that are interested in playtesting games are going to come out for our first ever designer day, or designer night, I should say, maybe.
The Tabletop Bellhop team is here to answer your gaming and game night question. Tonight's question comes from local gamer David, who asks, what's the hardest game you have played, yet you still recommend it to others?
So one thing I did before doing all our show notes and getting ready for this episode is I'd confirmed with David what he meant by the hardest games you have played. And we're going to go with difficult to learn and play, not like difficult to beat, because I know David's group prefers cooperative games, and he might have meant what's the hardest cooperative game that you just can't seem to win. And in that case, it's probably Base Castle Panic. So just in case he was wondering about that too, I'm going to throw that in there. But what we're talking about is hardest as in heaviest, difficult to learn, difficult to master. Game weight, a heavy game weight is what we're looking at today.
Yeah, so for the purpose of hardest, we're primarily going to use the industry standard Board Game Geek weight. Now, while not everyone is going to agree with this, it really is the most common point of reference that we as gamers have to talk about for difficulty in board games with other gamers. And if you don't agree with the weight there, you're more than welcome to add your vote in as to what it should be.
Now, in general, for us to recommend a game, it's got to be something we really like. So I took this question to read what's the heaviest game you played and actually had fun playing, not just ones that we would recommend others. And the reason for that is that I can't think of any game, no matter how heavy out there, that I wouldn't recommend to someone. As we've always said, not every game is for everyone, and that's awesome. But that also implies that there's probably a game out there for everyone, and there's probably someone for every game. Like, for example, 1830 from Mayfair Games is one of the first 18XX train games and is still one of the starting points for a lot of people. This is one of the heaviest games I've ever played. Now, I enjoyed the version where you just build tracks and you play without the stocks, but once you threw the stocks in, it was honestly a little bit too much for me. I did not enjoy the amount of math required there and upgrading engines and all the other stuff that goes with it. But I will still strongly recommend 1830 for fans of 18XX games, or for people who say enjoy Age of Steam or Steam Rails to Riches, who are looking for that next step and want more complexity and difficulty. So I would happily recommend 1830, just not for me. I think for the right group, it's a great recommendation.
Okay, I didn't look at it from that angle. I was picking games that are heavy that I want to play, that I love playing. That is what I went with.
Yeah, I opened up Board Game, my BG Stats app, listed all of the games in it, sorted by weight, and started at the top and went, do I love that game? Yes. Do I love that game? No. Do I love that game? Yes. and added them to the list in that manner.
Yeah, I did the more complicated. I had some right off the top of my head, easy answer. I got some easy answers here, but now I want to go detail. I went to the full, downloaded my BGG database, and then used some filters and pivot tables to list by weight. If I'd realized BG Stats listed by weight, I probably could have saved about an hour last night.
Yeah, because then I was trying to remember games we don't actually own that we've played that are on the heavier side, and there were a few there, right? So,
yep. All right, well, let's move on to Dave's question. What's the hardest or heaviest game we've played that we actually enjoyed? For me, this is easy. It's Weather Machine. Unfortunately, I only ever got to play it once, and it was so long ago that I barely remember the experience now. Yeah. I do, however, remember loving it and wanting to play it again. But as it was not any sort of obligation for us, it has never returned to the table.
Yeah, I'm with you on this. This was good. This is on my list, which I'm going to defer to you since you've already added on the list, and we're trying not to repeat tonight. But yeah, Weather Machine was actually really good, and I do want to play it again. It's on that list of games we really need to get to the table again. But what we really need to do is review a bunch of games so that we can get through the pile of obligations, so we can get back to those games that we want to give another try to and want to deep dive into that we haven't had a chance for. So yeah, first world problem. We have too many games we need to talk about that we can't sit down and play the games we want to play. Not that the games we need to talk about, we don't want to play those. We want to play those too. It's just there's too many games. Now, my number one game, and this literally soon as I read Dave's question, I was like, it's Arkwright. It's got to be. And then I went and I confirmed, looking at, like Sean said, I went on Board Game Geek and I sorted by weight, and I looked at my collection, sorted by weight, and I'm like, yep, number one, top game, most difficult game is Arkwright. So yes, I verified it is. This is a heavy economic game about running factories during 18th century England and the start of automation. It's about hiring workers and then replacing those workers with machines, managing your outputs, and the most evil part of the game, setting prices and more. This is, lemonade stand deluxeified. This is the only game I've ever played in my entire life where on the last round of the game, every single player broke out sheets of paper, pencils, and calculators to plan out their final turn. And it was actually fun. This really is on the border, though, of work versus play. I can totally see a lot of people thinking this is just far too much work to be enjoyable. So this is, yes, the heaviest game I actually enjoyed, but I can't recommend this to the general audience. That's for sure.
Okay, so the first game I thought of was Arkwright, which I adore. And the fact that you want to break out a piece of paper and a pencil, like that's in the plus column for me. The next game that came to mind was Weather Machine, which I can't wait to get back to the table, but you guys already picked those. So I'm going to go with Through the Ages, A New Story of Civilization. Now, I remember the first time I played this game, which was like a decade ago, and it was at an overnight Extra Life Marathon gaming event. And the guy that had brought it pointed out that this game is epic. And he warned everyone that was sitting down that you're going to be tied up for the entire afternoon, evening playing this game. And I was like, hey, I'm sold. That sold me on it, right? And I loved that first play. Like, I couldn't wait to get back to the table. And I was so excited when we ended up picking up a copy of our own, which I have to be honest and say, I remember playing maybe 3 times because it's kind of a hard sell because it is this big, long, epic experience. But I adore it.
So for those that don't know it, that is a card-driven civilization building game where you start in ancient times and go all the way to the traveling out into space, all using cards. It's a fantastic game. I'm with Deanna on this one. It's a great game. One thing I am going to recommend for everyone, though I haven't done it myself, is apparently the way to play this game now is digitally. There is a Steam version of Through the Ages, A New Story in Civilization, and it's apparently fantastic. And people are now playing, hundreds of plays of this game that normally is so hard to get to the table. Plus, there's a big community around it. So if you are looking for players, they should be pretty easy to find. So I'm going to call out the Steam version, which I'll try to remember to toss a link in the show notes as well.
And it feels like Civilization, the computer game, in board game form to me. Like this game, the most of all games out there, Colonists a bit, but like this one, I'm like, this is Civ in board game form.
Interestingly, I've got 14 plays of this game because we played it on Board Game Arena. But it hasn't stuck with me. So I think I need to try it in the physical form because the BGA experience never really sank in with me. It was something I played, but really could not care less about, honestly. So,
and I will note that the Steam version is not the BGA version, and the BGA version was out first, and people played it. But like all the hype I've heard is about the Steam version, the digital version. Of the game.
It's like Carcassonne,
really
right?
good.
The Carcassonne BGA is boring, whereas the Carcassonne, the actual physical game, really proper video game, has always been a great experience.
Agreed.
All right, well, that answers Dave's question, but we don't want to stop there. Next up, we're going to share some of our favorite heavier games, if not the heaviest game we've got on our list. Now, for games I remember playing and loving, next top would be Anachrony, one of the best time travel mechanics out there with fantastic worker placement system. A big love to David Zerke and the others who worked on this game, particularly in our case, the Infinity Box Edition, which is what we have and have played.
And to be fair, we actually played the original edition, and then we played the Explorer's Kit edition. And this game is so good that I bought every edition that's come out, and I have paid to upgrade everything I possibly can. I've said it many times on the podcast before, and our most often question is, what is your favorite game? Well, it's Anachrony. So Son just listed my #1 game of all time. So yeah, I agree. Now for me, I'm going to actually do my recommendations in order of declining weight. I don't think Sean and Deanna did this, but for mine
are.
Yours are, okay. I don't think Deanna's are. Or they might be, I don't know. But I'm going in order of declining weight. So I'm going to start with Mage Knight, the board game. Note, this is the board game, not the old collectible clicks game that started the WizKids empire and made clicks a thing. This is a fantasy sandbox exploration fantasy quest game that's really friggin' heavy because it's a fantasy sandbox exploration game where you can kind of do anything. Like you start on one corner of the map and then go. It's basically a procedurally generated role-playing game, like a CRPG, done in board game form. Like it is just amazing what they have done with this game and how engaging it is, and just how much exploration there is and how every game's different. This is considered by many people the best solo game ever published, though we actually all played it too. Well, not all. Deanna and I have played it 2 players, and this is just a neat game. But it's a beast. Like there's a tutorial that walks you through playing that takes about 6 hours to go through just to learn each of the mechanics, where it's like, okay, now we're going to introduce you to going into a town for the first time. Okay, here's what to do when you've gone into a town. Now you're going to wander over here. What showed up? Did a wizard's tower show up? Well, here's how to manage wizard's towers. It's ridiculous, but if you like that open-ended, do what you want style of game, this one I think is going to be for you.
All right, next up I have Kanban. This is a game about building cars and managing an automobile factory. And for those of you who don't know Kanban in the real world, not the game, it's basically a Japanese system for lean manufacturing. And Mo used to do this stuff for his day job. So, of course, when this game first came out, we absolutely had to try it. The game has you managing suppliers and supplies and improving parts and driving innovation and trying to make Sandra, the factory manager, happy. The game even gives you the option of playing on easy mode with happy Sandra or on hard mode where Sandra is a mean manager. Well, I was super curious to try this one out. If I'm going to be honest, I also worried that it was going to be dry as heck, and it's not. It's totally fun. I love this game.
Now, one thing to note with this one is there are multiple editions out there, and I did not go on Board Game Geek to figure out what's the most current. We just have the original Stronghold version of the game, but I think the latest is EV Vehicles edition. But there have been multiple versions, and based on the BGG ratings and feedback, it does seem like each iteration does get better.
All right, well, next up, I have Eclipse, Second Dawn of the Galaxy. Sci-fi is going to feature prominently on my list, as it is the theme that connects most with me and helps a meatier game make more sense. Eclipse, of course, being a prime example of this, with Second Dawn making the game so much more of a complete experience for players. If you want a meaty, spacefaring game, it's hard to go wrong with Eclipse.
Yeah, I'll give that a second vote. And when I told Gwen what our topic was for tonight's show, she just started singing Eclipse, Eclipse, Eclipse. So yeah, I think that one gets her vote too.
And again, that's probably in my top 5 games of all time, not just heavy games. It is a fantastic 4X game. All right, my next one is Madeira. In this one, you're making your fame on the island of Madeira in 15th century Portugal. Now, Madeira is the Portuguese word for wood, and they named the island this because it was an entire island of trees. It is an extremely dense forest of very thick, solid wood. And this is a game about populating the island, building plantations, exploiting the forest and the locals, and building a sugar empire. And honestly, it's really about founding the Portuguese Empire, because the Portuguese Empire probably wouldn't have existed without this. Now, fair warning, as you can tell from that description, you may have a problem with the theme in this game, and I fully understand. If you do want to explore that region and that time period, though, this is a fantastic heavy game, economic, building cities, trying to outplay your opponents, thinky, great experience.
Have I ever played this? The fact that I can't remember playing it means if I did, I guess I didn't care for it too much. I don't know.
If I remember correctly, it came out when you were pregnant and had a newborn. I think it was the time period was when our second daughter...
Because it sounds like the kind of game I should dig, but I don't remember playing it. All right. I've got Food Chain Magnate. This is a heavy economic game about running a fast food chain. The game uses a card-driven human resource system where you hire a new person for your org chart each round and use workers to handle purchasing, marketing, and sales. And I love this game so much. It is super cutthroat, and it's well known as a game where you can really back yourself into a corner or even lose the game on turn 1, which I know some people think that's a minus, but I'm leaving it in the plus column.
Yeah, the designer of this game is famous for stating that if you can't lose the game on turn 1, why have turn 1? If you can lose the game on turn 2, that should be your turn 1. A very serious outplay your opponents, outthink everyone. No randomness factor from what I remember. It's been a little while since we played this one. Super competitive game. That is so competitive, so many people complained it was too cutthroat that they put out an expansion called the Catch-Up Mechanic, or the Catch-Up expansion that included catch-up mechanics, and you can no longer lose in turn 1 if you have that expansion.
All right, well, from hamburgers to mechs, we can go with you.
McDonald's?
Historical sci-fi, diesel punk 1920s with European powers and mechs. Now, this one was off all of our tables after early bad experiences, Mo's with the physical, mine with the digital version. But when you take the time to learn and explore this game with other people who are interested in learning and exploring this game, it has so much to offer. This one flipped from hate to love for all of us, and is absolutely a game that, while heavy, is worth the weight, really worth dealing with the weight of the game to learn and find out what Scythe has to offer for you.
And this game to me is the poster child for why we try to play our games with different groups, because our bad experiences with this game were basically playing with over competitive players who knew the game very well and just destroyed anyone new who joined, which made it not fun. Meanwhile, sitting and playing this game with a bunch of noobs who had never played it before was a fantastic experience. I really like this game. I keep buying expansions for this game, but the same complaint I had earlier about Weather Machine not hitting the table applies here. We just need the time to get past the pile of obligations so we can try side expansions. I've got 3 of them sitting there right here, right next to me. All right. Next up, I have one of the biggest, longest beasts of a game ever published, unless you get into heavy war games, Twilight Imperium. And I'm going to call out specifically the 3rd edition with all of the expansions. So you got all the 4Xs, including expansion. This is still one of my all-time favorite sci-fi 4X games, but it's long. It has a reputation of taking all night and being ridiculous in 24 hours and so on. Now, I will admit, with a group of experienced players who play it a bunch of weeks in a row, we were able to get a full game with all expansions down to about 6 hours with 6 players. But that was, I think, after our 4th game every weekend in a row where everyone knew the game and had learned their factions, all playing the same faction. So it can be done. There is a lot going on in this game, but I don't think anything else quite captures that feel of a Masters of Orion, Stellaris, massive sci-fi 4X computer game in board game form, with voting and factions and victory points and exploration and ground combat and space combat and improving your technologies, all of that awesome stuff. Now, Sean called out Eclipse earlier, and I fully admit Eclipse in my collection gets played a lot more due to its much more manageable playtime and easier to learn systems, but it's still nothing like a full game of TI3.
You cannot mention Twilight Imperium without me thinking about that game with my cousin where for over the course of an hour, he kept going, is it still turn 1? It's still turn 1?
Except I think that was over the course of 3 hours, which is why he kept asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, and see, as much as I love sci-fi, I've still never given Twilight Imperium a chance because having the time to be able to do that is just difficult and doesn't get any easier the older we get. If we had gotten a hold of Twilight Imperium back, decades ago, absolutely, we probably would have been all in. But now, my God, who's got 6 hours straight for a board game?
6 hours
I
minimum.
Think 6 is optimistic, Sean.
Yes.
Optimistic.
I think we should make a pledge to ourselves that if we do have an Extra Life event next year, we should all sit down, or at least Sean and I should sit down and play a full game of Twilight Imperium 3rd edition.
I'm not vetoing the idea. All right. I want to talk about Fire in the Lake. This is a historic multi-faction look at the Vietnam War. The game stands out in my head because Mo and I had this really fascinating playthrough where a friend of ours who is a history buff, Neil, he came over with his copy and walked us through the game while making all this commentary and explaining the history behind what was going on and how it matched with the gameplay. And the fact that the mechanics and the theming are so tightly tied in this game, and it really does walk you through all these historic events. Like, I know it's what GMT is known for, but I was so impressed. We don't own a copy. I only played it the one time, but like I said, it sticks out in my mind as a stellar game because of that one experience. And it was historically interesting, but also just mechanically sort of a fun game. If you can say, recreating the Vietnam War is fun. At the time we played it, it was ranked the most popular coin or counterinsurgency game from GMT. I don't know where it sits now, but yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, that was the game that's like, okay, maybe I will like coin games. No, this is before Root came out and everyone got exposed to coin games in a totally different way with cute furry animals. But yes, I was like, I am now willing to check out more coin games. That was my big takeaway from that one.
All right, well, back to the sci-fi. I've got Pulsar 2849, one of my favorite games of all time. This is a fantastic sci-fi experience that just makes so much sense because of the way the mechanics flowed, making this medium-heavy game play so much more smoothly than a glance at the board and the weight might indicate. This was one of the first times I ever played a game and felt that synchronicity between the theme and the mechanics, and just the way everything worked made sense. Oh, I am putting a dice in this because that's what because it's oscillating at, whatever. Everything about it just made sense. And so that weight, that difficulty sort of melted away. It's still a difficult game, but there's a reason behind it all, and it all plays into that theme, which is something that we have been talking about recently. CGE tends to do pretty well.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. This is going to be a bit of a trend of a topic for tonight, actually, especially once we get to our review section later tonight. And that is something I love, are heavy games that don't feel heavy because the mechanics are so well tied to the theme that they just make sense, that there's logical progressions. And of course, that's what you do next. And yes, CGE is fantastic at this. All right, I'm going to pull something out here that frustrates some of our fans when I call out of print games, but I'm going to call out one that's so out of print that I think will get the Grognards giving me a thumbs up here, and that is going to be a shout out to the classic Star Trek game Starfleet Battles. Now, I got to try this game after hours back when Windsor had a gaming convention called the Windsor Game Fest in the dorm rooms upstairs at the University of Windsor, and I was hooked. This is just such a neat game, recreating starship battles in the Star Trek universe. I later actually picked up my own copy of the game. I got the original box set off eBay, and Deanna and I sat down and tried to play it, and is it a beast? Holy cow. The rule book is like reading a flippin' technical manual, and you're referencing section 3.6.5.A/B, torpedo tube heat interference from photons or something like that. Starfleet Battles to me is a game that is best learned from someone else who already knows how to play. And that still stands. I still strongly believe that. But every time I do actually sit down and play, even the game we played with Deanna and I, where it was the Enterprise versus one Klingon D7 battleship, we had a great time. I love this game, despite its overly detailed system, its ridiculously intricate timing rules, and the whole energy allocation system. There are still fans to these days. You go to cons, and almost every war game, any con that has wargaming, there's probably at least one table that's still playing Starfleet Battles. So this one's more of a head nod, a thumbs up to a classic game that is way heavier than most things out there, but can be a lot of fun.
Yeah, that one is just a unique experience.
So interestingly, this game came out in 1979, yet an expansion was released for it in 2012.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got The Colonists. This is a very ambitious game about building up a village from scratch. It's designed to be played out over 4 eras, and you can play just a single era, and that feels like playing an entire meaty resource management game on its own. Or you can play through multiple eras, making the game more involved and much, much longer. You can even go for the most epic game, playing a single village through all 4 different technological eras, and that'll easily take you 8 hours or more. And I love this game so much. It is epic in all the right ways. I love the feeling of progression through time, and the way it's divided into eras. It makes it possible to chop it into a smaller game, or to have a good stopping point, leave things set up, and then step back into it later. Like, we have totally done that. We've had a game set up and played it out over several sittings, like a week-long game of The Colonists. And I know Mo thinks it's a bit much, but I love it.
All right, well, next up, I've got Xia. Now, you look at Xia and you think, oh, you're down into like the medium heavy stuff, and you're getting down there, except it's still sci-fi, and while there are many more games we've played, you require Embers of a Forsaken Star to fully enjoy Xia. And I note that Embers of a Forsaken Star brings that up almost half a full point. So it goes from like a 3 to a 3.49 with Embers of a Forsaken Star. So I'm using that as justifying that, keeping that in my list of heavier games. This game just gives you that freewheeling space exploration, make your own game sandbox experience in sci-fi that is so wonderful. And it won't take you 6 hours or more to play. You don't have to worry about, voting blocks in the Senate. You're just out there freewheeling around space, deciding whether you want to shoot things or deliver things or do what you may.
Yeah, and again, I think this one's similar to Mage Knight in the fact that because it's a sandbox, that's where the complexity is. There's lots of little rules for little things. You can go pick up cargo. You can go upgrade your ship. There's a ridiculous number of different ship upgrades in the game, especially with the expansion. You can go explore comets. You can run missions, and there has to be rules for all these things. Every planet has a planetary shield, and there's rules for smuggling past the shield. That's what adds the weight to this game. The actual mechanics are actually fairly simple, but there's so many different options, and you got to count for rules for all of that. And that's where the weight comes in. Because Zaya was actually one that I was like, I got to look up what people gave that, because it's a surprisingly heavy game. It's kind of the opposite of where you're like, oh, this one's easier than I thought. It's like, no, there's some meat here. All right, next I've got Vinhos Deluxe. This was actually rated lower in weight than I expected. And I think it's because of what Sean was talking about earlier. I think this has a lot to do with how well the mechanics in this game tied to the theme of making wine. For a heavy game, this one's easy to learn and has a great flow. Like, you're going to purchase a vineyard, and then you're going to expand and upgrade your facilities. You're going to barrel your wine and ship it out. And at the same time, you have to make sure you have a solid presence at the yearly wine tasting festivals. Like, it just works. This is the heavy game I like to introduce to people who don't know they love heavy games yet. And it often wins them over into trying more difficult, complicated games, because Vinhos just flows so well. And they're like, wow, like this looks like a beast. And they play through it and they're like, that wasn't bad at all. Anachrony is another one. We always get the comment that like, okay, I got to front load all these rules before you make a decision. But by the end of turn one, everyone's like, oh, I thought this was going to be way worse than this. I get that with Vinhos a lot as well.
Yeah, and the wine theme sucks people in. I remember we sat down with a couple that weren't really heavy board gamers, more role players, and we totally got them playing Vinhos and loving it. And that was that's when I was like, you were right about this game. You can pull anyone into this one.
Yeah.
All right, I've got Terra Mystica, and this is a fantasy empire building game with a huge amount of asymmetry and no luck after you do that first deal out. Each faction plays totally differently. Unlocking new powers and abilities the more you expand and build your kingdom. This one is all about knowing your faction and knowing the factions of your opponents. It's a game that definitely rewards system mastery. The BGA implementation for this one is so good. I have played it literally hundreds of times on there. I have to say, Mo and I were talking about this before the show, and I had not thought of putting Terra Mystica on this list because I thought it was on the lighter side. I think I've just played it so much that it doesn't feel heavy anymore. Because I looked it up and BGG has it as a 3.98. So, I mean, that's lower than some of the games we're listing, but not light.
Yeah, I was shocked when I did my list, and I'm like, wait, why is Terra Mystica? Oh yeah, no, I guess maybe that is kind of hard, isn't it? So the next one I've got is yet again another game that I've only gotten to play once, loved, and has never seen the table yet again, and that is Dune Imperium. Now again, this one, the base game is a medium heavy game, but the expansions that have come afterwards have really boosted that up and added a lot more difficulty to the game. This is a great card-driven war game, and it's just such a delight to play. At least it was the one time I've done it, and I really want to get to the table more and learn how much I'm sure I am going to love Dune Imperium and all of its expansions.
Yeah, unfortunately, this one I got turned off on because of the way Direwolf released it with a second Kickstarter and republishing the same game with a different name. And I'm just like, you muddied the waters so much. I'm like, I don't even know. I'm like, all I know is my game's the old obsolete version. You put out better versions since. All right, the final game I want to call out is Dungeon Lords. And I just want to throw it on this list kind of almost as an honorable mention. It's because it's the opposite of what we were talking about earlier, with these meaty, heavy games with well-integrated things that make them easier to learn and not as heavy as they are. Well, this is the opposite, because this is a game that is way heavier than you would expect based on the artwork on the box and the theme of the game. This looks like a nice, silly game about building dungeons and slapping around your minions, perhaps based on the Dungeon Keeper line of video games that were popular when this came out, because it's an older game. But that is not this at all. This is a super punishing action optimization, worker placement-based bidding game that's not easy to pick up at all. But a fantastic game once you get through that learning curve and the work of learning it. This one is so heavy that there is half of the rule book is a tutorial that you're supposed to go through step by step to play through the first 2 rounds of the game that has you stop halfway through to say, check in with your players and see if they're still interested in playing, or if we bore them to death or given them too much math and they want to quit. If they want to quit, stop playing now, find a different group to teach this to. That's in the rule book. Like, I'm not even joking. This isn't hyperbole. The rule book tells you check with the players to make sure they're having fun before you continue.
I remember I didn't even want to play this game because it sounded too light. And then you're like, Deanna, no, there's this line in the rule book. And I'm like, all right, sit me down.
Yeah. And I admit I love it, but it's definitely not for everyone. From what I understood in Dungeon Pets, it's for those people who want a slightly sillier version of this game. But I haven't tried that because I love Dungeon Lords. I've got the anniversary edition with all the expansions and the expanded boards, and I've actually done some upgrades to the components. Though I will admit, this is not a game where the mechanics are tied all that well to the system. So if I had to sit down and play this tomorrow, oh man, I might have to go through that tutorial again.
I want to sneak in House of Fado. So this is just such a solid medium weight game that I find super easy to teach and pick up on your first play. And the theme and mechanics all just make sense, right? And you may be wondering why I'm talking about this, as it's not particularly heavy. BGA has it weighted at 2.8. Well, the first time that I played the game was at the Adam Gamers Retreat, and the fellow from Eagle-Gryphon who was showing us the game described it as a streamlined version of the Gallerist. And I've never played the Gallerist. I'm vaguely aware of it. Like, I know the theme and stuff, but haven't played it. And that just stuck in my head. And then I played House of Fado, and I loved it. And I brought it home, played a whole bunch more, loved it. It's like my favorite game for the year. And then I'm like, wait, this is a streamlined version of the Gallerist? Now I really want to check out the Gallerist. And it's that's in the back of my mind. And then the other day I noticed the Gallerist is a 4.22 and House of Fado is only a 2.8. And I'm like, well, that disparity there, they must have really streamlined it. Now I definitely need to check out the Gallerist. Like, I'm so curious about this. I really want to compare them and play the two. So it's top of my mind.
All right. Well, now that you've heard our list.
Well, I thought you'd come up with something. So now you've heard our list of heavyweight games. What we want to know next is, what are yours? What is the heaviest game you played that you actually had a ton of fun with? This could be something that was a surprise where you're like, oh, I didn't know I would like a game this heavy, or something you played and you look up the Board Game Geek weight and you're like, what? It's a 4.8? I didn't find it that complicated. Or you could be into heavy games and be like, you know what? I've been playing Advanced Squad Leader since I was 13, and the game I like is heavier than every dang game on your list, Bellhop team. What are you talking about? I still want to hear about it. I want to know, what is the heaviest game you actually enjoy playing and would recommend to others? You can let us know by sending off an email to mo@tabletopbellhop.com. Leave a comment, reply, wherever you found this, or post on our Discord server over at discord.tabletopbellhop.com.
Welcome to the Bellhop's Tabletop, where we talk about the games that have been playing lately and other cool stuff going on.
All right, first game I want to talk about is a castle tower defense board game from WWBG, or Wonderful World Board Gaming, called Castle Raisers. I always want to say risers. It's raisers, like someone's raising a castle. Now, Deanna and I actually got to check this out back at Gamma Expo. I think we even talked about it on our Gamma recap episode. And after the fact, they were cool enough to ship us a review copy once the retail version was printed. Now, at this point, due to everything going on in the world, we do not know if this game has been released in the US yet, because they were having problems getting copies from China to the US. So I don't know if it's available in the US yet, but I know you could pick up copies at Gen Con. But more importantly, for this episode, you will be able to pick up the game at Spiel. Now, this is a game that takes the Three Little Pigs story and advances it a bit. Each player is playing a pig, and if you're 4 players, I guess it's 4 little pigs, trying to build a castle out of straw, wood, and stone to fight off an army of wolves. and it can be played competitively or cooperatively.
You
Now-
get the name, right? It's
Yeah.
Castle Raisers, like a pun. You're either raising the castle to destroy it or raising it to build it up, depending on how you spell it.
Now, gameplay revolves around players drafting wall sections and placing them onto the growing castle. Now, every tile you draft has 2 action icons shown on it, and when you cover up one of those, you take the action. Now, the actions include installing and dumping hot soup cauldrons onto the wolves, adding upgrades to your castle courtyard, which increase the strength of the other actions, opening up endgame scoring opportunities as well, building up your fortifications, the height of your walls, raising your prestige by building these little piggy tower statue things, or sending wolves to attack your opponents. Yes, this is a take that game. This is the complete opposite of the games we've been talking about for the most part tonight. This is a light family weight game, plays under an hour, half an hour to 45 minutes, even at the full player count. Take that nasty silliness. Actually, this one was lighter than I expected, which honestly, I will admit was a bit disappointing. I thought there was going to be more strategy to the whole what I draft sets me up for what I can do later thing, where I find in general, there's not a lot of strategy and you're just going to grab tiles with the right icons, what you need at the time, or getting stuck with what's left.
So I will note that we have been playing by the retail rulebook that came with the game. But since then, there has been a revised rulebook released, which makes significant layout and design changes to the book. It is far more clear and concise now by like chopping out like 10 pages of content. But until or unless a new printing happens, you'll have to download it off of Board Game Geek, not from the publisher's website, where they still have the original manual for download.
Now, I know you guys looked at that this afternoon. Are there actual rule changes, or did they just tidy up, what was...
I didn't do a full like line by line compare, but a reasonably thorough read through just suggested that it is just more concise and clear. I didn't see any actual rule changes.
Which, that's good. It needs it. I hope they up the font a bit. I found it really tiny. My daughter told me it was just my eyes, though. I found the font in the rulebook to be a little on the small side. I think this game was not lighter than I expected. I expected a family weight game, so it clocked in about where I thought it was going to go. I can't help but compare it to Castle Panic, and I like it quite a bit more than Castle Panic, which isn't saying much because I sort of hate Castle Panic. And I know Gwen felt the same way. She's like, I really don't care for Castle Panic. And this game reminds me of Castle Panic. But I like it better than Castle Panic. And I'm like, yes. we both solidly agreed on that when we had a conversation on it. And I was amused by the whole soup thing, because the whole family game, and instead of pouring boiling oil on the wolves, we're giving them pots of soup, and then they get full and go away and they don't want to attack anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. The theme is definitely cute. I appreciate the theme. I do like the look of the game. Like it's got a neat aesthetic. You are building up a tower, though I will say they don't quite get as tall as I was hoping. Like when I got the demo of the game, I didn't realize I played a full game, put it that way, for how short and quick it was. And like even the game where all I tried to do was build my tower as tall as possible, I think I got the max to 7 tiles high. And I think there may be a way to get it to 8, but that's it. And it's going to be a lopsided tower where it's just you built a pyramid with the one spot that's higher than the rest. And I kind of wish, like, I like the aesthetic of it, but I want a tower. I want to raise something more than the kind of little longhouse kind of looking thing that you end up with at the end. Now, the take that side of this, though, actually can be quite nasty. I know I didn't play in the game, but there was a game where people were just attacking each other and people had more negative points than positive ones.
Yeah, so
that might have been me.
Yeah, so the action which calls the wolves to your opponent's towers is a completely valid and suitable choice to make, and sometimes one you're even forced to take. It can, however, become overwhelming. In the game we mentioned, we actually ran out of arrow tokens by the last round because of the overwhelming forces of wolves being set against us. Just for reference, while you can get rid of some wolves every turn, there are certain wolves you want to focus on first. In fact, the wolves with ladders are the ones you want to get rid of because they allow wolves to climb into your castle later, no matter how tall you build it. So sometimes you may not get to taking out the archer wolves. And yeah, we were, I think 7 or 9 arrows short over the entire collection of arrows that were available to us.
And that wasn't a 4-player game, max count. But I feel like you take the guys out with the ladders in the very last round. You leave them there. You take out the guys with the arrows first because they're going to puncture you.
Yeah, I think that might have been part of the teach. So the rule book strongly suggests taking out red wolves first. You just have to take out the ladder wolves by the last round. I agree with you. It's hard not to compare this to Castle Panic. Note Castle Panic is co-op only, whereas we are talking about the competitive play in Castle Razors, which is the default way to play. So that's a significant difference between the two. But this does have a co-op mode, but we haven't tried that yet. So you'll probably get to hear us talk about Castle Razors again once we do get a chance to sit down and play with the cooperative mode.
Yeah, so while I haven't played it, I did take a look through the co-op rules, which are the same as the solo rules, just to get a feel for what the experience would be. And I will say that they, in the retail books, they weren't written as well as I might have hoped. Again, this has been updated in this revised rule book where they really cleaned up things a lot. But in this retail rule book, it was kind of messy. The key differences are that wolves are in a shared pool. So rather than wolves attacking each individual player's castle, you lay out a pool of wolves divided up into castle sections in the center of the table at the beginning. And that is where all the attacking of wolves happens. As well, there are threat cards, which are actually how you win the game. If everyone achieves defeating all of their threat cards, you win the co-op game. If anybody doesn't achieve their threat card win, you lose.
I think you also have a point total you have to hit. That's what I remember from reading the rules.
Yeah, I'm glad they cleaned up the rule book. I'm glad to hear that. When we played this, Mo was out of commission, and I found the font on the rule book very small, so I handed it to Gwen and told her, read the co-op rules and figure it out. And she went, nope. It doesn't make sense.
It was a which way book. It really was. I was bouncing back and forth from this page to that page and jumping around and trying to figure it out. And again, they have gone down from, I think it's like 22 pages down to 16. Like,
and I'm spoiled.
Really cleaned it
I'm
up
spoiled because Mo was the one that always reads the rule books and teaches the games, right? But this one seemed a little opaque.
Yeah, I will note that the game was originally not an English game or a North American game. It was published in Singapore. And they did use translators to create that rule book and the reference card. So I think that's where the failing happened. I think there might have been some Google Translate used because I know Google Translate tends to be pretty wordy compared to an actual translator.
I don't know. I do appreciate that they've cleaned it up, though.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a solid family weight game.
All right, another game I've been playing around with. Dee and Sean won't be able to talk about this one, though I'm sure at some point I'll break it out, is one of the things we brought home from Gamma Expo is a copy of Wanted Wombats. Actually, it's a prototype copy of the game. This is a Japanese import that's being localized by Barrel Aged Games, who we talked about before, Stool Pigeon being one of their most well-known games. And it comes from the same designer as Nana or Trio. And it's just as simple to pick up and play. And part of the market of this game is the game you just have in your pocket that you can bring out whenever you happen to have people around and want to play a game. And that's kind of the goal with Nana, and this is the same. Now, all this game is a deck of a bunch of wanted posters with wombats on them that are valued at 1K, 3K, 5K, and 10K. You take the deck, you shuffle it. Each turn, you declare what you're going to flip it, and see if it matches. If it matches, you keep it and you can stop, and then you get to keep that card in your little tableau, or you can flip again and by calling out another number. And again, if you're right, you can keep going. So it's a push your luck game. When you stop, you get to collect the rewards and keep them. But if you bust, if you flip over the wrong thing, you lose all your cards collected that round, not the ones in your tableau. First person with the tableau to 15K wins the game. And then one little rule that if you collect 3 1K wombats, they count as 5K. So there's a reason to collect those other ones. So it's super simple. The key, though, that makes this actually work is the fact that everyone knows the exact distribution of the cards in the deck, and everything stays flipped up. So you can constantly just check the odds on every single flip. It gets reset if a 10K card comes up and no one guesses it. You reshuffle everything back into the deck, so then you lose your perfect info and got to start over. But honestly, like, it doesn't sound like fun. It's a push alert card game where you always know the odds, but it's actually quite fun. This is a great simple filler game, and honestly, the kind of thing like Nana, where like all you're doing, what's your highest card? What's your lowest card? Like, dead simple to teach. Anyone can play this game, kids, adults, seniors. This is up there. Like, you're going to see this if you're local. This is going to probably be out at every single one of our public play events because the deck's nice and tiny and it's easy to toss in a box.
I remember demoing this. This is not a game for me. I am like anti-push your luck in general. It's like I have a anti-horseshoe. It doesn't matter if I know the odds. I'm going to break the odds. But I did think it was super fascinating to find out that it's by the same person as Nana, which I did not know when we had done that demo.
I even like push your luck. I just hate card counting. I really hate having to think about, okay, well, there's 27 cards in the deck and there's 7 cards out and there's 3 of this and 3 of I don't want to do that math. I just don't.
I think you might enjoy this more just because it's straight up numbers. Like,
Possibly.
There's 13 ones, there's 6 3s, there's 4 5s, and 2 10s. Like, compared to a deck of cards having to remember 52 cards, this is dead simple. Dead simple odds. All right, next up, we return to the festivities of T-Witches with a couple more plays of that one. We finally figured out a pretty good way to set up the game so it doesn't take up a ridiculous amount of space with 4 players, which is nice. One thing I did like about this game now that we tried it at different player counts is nothing changes. I love that. There's no odd variance. There's not even like cards you remove from the deck. I absolutely adore games that set up the same no matter the player count, and it works. All that really changes if you change the player count is the amount of competition for spots and, well, the game time, because the game is listed at 30 minutes per player. So far, the closest I think we've gotten is about 40 minutes per player. This is not a quick game. One thing we did do this game too is try out the deluxe components. So that was something else we tossed into the game. And we have mixed thoughts on those, but we'll get to them in a minute because Dee and I already talked about this last episode, but Sean finally got to try the game. So what do you think of T-Witches from the op?
So there is a lot going on in this game. Certainly doesn't feel like a game from the op. While the art is beautiful, the sheer size of everything, as well as the colors and contrasts, make some things unreadable depending on where you're sitting. Now, this is more of a function of the table space taken up than any negatives on the graphics or art design on this game. This might be the first game that I have ever seen where that an actual sunken game table, like actual proper game table, might actually be a benefit, as getting the higher perspective on this game might alleviate some of those vision issues, at least those of us with half decent eyes. Now, for instance, if you're sitting in front of the specialties, the chances of you reading anything on hex support several feet away from you is pretty slim. Now, while many things can be memorized to alleviate some of these issues, if you can't see the market tiles that are out that turn or the celebrities who are available at that turn, you're going to have to ask to see them.
I think it didn't bug me in this game. I'm trying to think why. I feel like I'm not, something about the way this game plays, I'm not advertising my move to everyone by saying, can you hand me those? I want to take a look at it.
Yep.
So it didn't bother me. And a lot of the things were like the hex support. You're gonna memorize those pretty quick. You don't need to see that, right? So a lot of the things I don't need to see, or I can see well enough to make a guess at what I want to do. And then I don't mind asking because I'm not ruining my strategy by asking.
Yeah, you're not giving away the game by the by letting people know what you might be considering. That's not really an issue.
Now, one of the things I do want to call about this game, that the more we play it, is becoming more obvious, and a potential issue is downtime. This is one of those games where you can do a lot on your turn. Very seldom is your turn, I put out my teapup, I collect this tea, I fulfill this person, I'm done. It's much more likely going to be, I put out this teapup, I'm going to go in this spot, Let me see if I have enough. Okay, I'm going to need 2 actions. So I'm going to use 1 action. No, wait, no, I need 3 actions. So I'm going to back that up and put my teapup here so that I can take this tea, then turn, then take this tea. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to activate the spot. Okay, when I activate the spot, I'm going to play this card that lets me take 3 extra actions. Then I'm going to do this to get this tea. And then I'm going to use that tea to be able to fulfill this, to be able to, and I'm not even going to get into the details. I was sticking with actual mechanics. I'm just going to break apart here and go and do 20 other things. And you're like, bam, that was an awesome turn. Did you see all the stuff I got done? Meanwhile, everyone else at the table has pulled out their phones. It is great fun for the player doing it, but it can make individual turns long. And it's not that bad if one person does it. But when you're the 4th player and 3 other people pull off a turn like this, you're going to fall asleep. And I don't usually complain about downtime in a game. And it's not AP, though AP is part of it. There can be some thinking, especially that taking back. I find every player has a hard time determining exactly how many actions they need to do a thing until they start actually doing it. So there is a bit of that. But it's just the amount of these combos you can pull off and these really cool moves that are fun for the person doing it, but that slow everything down. And then again, one of the fixes for this thing is usually, be ready on your turn to do your thing and plan it out. But this is a game where things change. The tea that's available, the way the things are turned, what things are available in the market, all can change before your turn. So a lot of times planning out 2-3 turns in advance doesn't matter because something's going to mess with that and you're not going to be able to act it out anyway.
Yeah, indeed. If it wasn't for the last call portion of players' turns, which requires everyone to stop, check their cards, and look at the state of the board, there would be little to no point in looking at the game for most of the time between turns because the state of things is going to change so drastically by the time it becomes your turn. Any plans you had are out the window.
Okay, so I didn't have a problem with downtime in this one, but I only played a demo game at 4. I haven't played a full game at 4, so that could be part of it. I just and maybe as I play more, this is going to wear off on me, but I have enough thinking going on in my mind while I'm playing this, thinking ahead and stuff that I want to do, that it's keeping my brain active and engaged in the game in between my turns. Though I agree with what you're saying, that the fountain gets turned and you have to recalculate everything.
Yeah. Yeah, this downtime, actually, because of this, I'm on the fence now as far as player count. Like, I like the speed and gameplay length of 3 players. Like, to me, it's like perfect. That feels like 4 turns with 3 players just felt right. But I really liked how competitive it was for markets with 4 players. How you didn't just get to go in. I always found with 3 players, if my prime spot wasn't available, my second move was there. So it wasn't that bad. But with 4, it was like, oh man, I need these 3 actions. How can I get through? I can't go there now. Now I have to rethink my whole strategy, which was a fun moment. Not fun for everyone else waiting for me, but fun for me to have to rethink my whole plan. And with 2 players, you probably always are going to have an option, which again is going to speed up playtime. So I don't know. I liked the amount of competition with 4 players with more strategic and tactical play. And with 4 players, I actually did the thing where I was looking at what other people might want and possibly taking a spot so they couldn't have it, which I didn't have that with 3. But man, that downtime gets bad. Like, I almost want the 4-player game to only be 3 seasons or find some other way to shorten it. So I get that feel of tightness and frustration of difficulty without super increasing that downtime.
So the final thing we have to say isn't about the game itself, but the T-Witch's Deluxe Upgrade Kit, which comes directly from the op. As one would expect, this gives you a bunch of nice, solid, tangible upgrades to the cardboard pieces that come with the game, with a complete replacement for all of the tea toppings in wood, which are just fantastic. These are really, tactile, top-notch upgrades to the cardboard. Then we have the tea replacement. Now, these are acrylic beads, and they're very, very nice ones. They are, however, just a semi-transparent colored bead. And while looking at them, it's instantly noted that they are missing the key decorative features on the cardboard versions of tea, which help overcome any color blindness issues. So while they feel nice and they look really pretty sitting on your teapups, they pose some problems visually and make differentiating the colors of tea significantly, I would say, harder than with their cardboard that they are replacing. Honestly, after playing with them, I've only played with them once, but I would be hard pressed to ever recommend their purchase, because while the toppings are nice, they are not worth the price point of the entire upgrade package on their own.
And I was so excited when I saw those little like tiddlywinks, like little tea tiddlywinks. I'm like, oh, that's adorable, right? But the shades of green are too close. The orange is too close to the pink. Like, there's good differentiation with the cardboard. They're very distinct from across the table. With some lighting, the pink can get a little dodgy, but once you change to the tiddlywinks, you're screwed. Like, even people that don't have vision issues, I noticed y'all were complaining last time. So
Now I will note, Deanna hasn't actually touched them, I think. They're not tiddlywinks. They're actually like curved. They're bumped. So they look more like a teapot, which is kind of nice. Like when they're in the teapot, they actually look pretty cool.
I watched you play with them. I did not play with them. They look like tiddlywinks to me.
Yeah, they're sided, right? There's a flat side and a rounded side. But yeah, I totally agree. And also, like, the green is very light, whereas the graphics and the green tea icon in the game is very dark. And I don't know why that one wasn't a darker bead. Like, it is the lightest bead in the game, is the second darkest icon in the game, which is a weird choice. The one thing I was just thinking about while we were talking about it is I wonder if you could glue those onto the cardboard and then they would translucent through to show.
I actually I changed my writing. I had said the only way I could recommend purchasing this is if you were willing to upgrade the upgrade kit. Yeah. But that seems dumb.
I know. I was thinking, like, if I
have it now,
doodled on them with acrylic markers, would they be better? Yes, I was thinking that while we were talking about it.
My other thought was flip them and draw on the icon somehow. Like, our daughters have all kinds of art supplies. You know, give them to Gwen for an afternoon and have her draw in the appropriate icons. I want to try
gluing them together now. I'm super curious.
Yeah, I'm thinking that might work.
I can sacrifice one to give it a try.
Anyway. All right. The last game we had to talk about tonight would be Kutna Hora, City of Silver from CGE. But we're literally about to move into a detailed review of that game. So all I'm going to say here is Dee and I really dig it. Sean dug the mechanics but didn't care for the theme. And if you want to hear more about that, just stick around.
Well, that's all we've got this week. With everyone feeling better and a Walkerville game night tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. We should have more to talk about next week, but we've got a full week of things going on next week, so who knows what's actually going to happen. Travel back in time to the 14th century when silver was discovered near a Cistercian monastery and the founding of Kutna Hora, the City of Silver, which became one of the most important cities in Central Europe.
Kutna Hora, City of Silver is a historic city-building board game for 2 to 4 players, which features an innovative card-driven supply and demand system and mechanics expertly tied to the theme, making it much easier to learn than you would expect for a heavy economics-based game.
This strategy game comes from the design team of Andrei Bystron, Petr Chaslava, and Pavel Jurash, and was published by CGE back in 2023 and is still easy to find online and in local game stores. We have to thank CGE for letting us take their demo copy home from Gamma Expo so we could check it out and show it off.
The component quality in this game is notable. Almost every component in the game, from card to cardboard, has silver highlighting on it that fits in well with the theme. The various tokens are made of a material called rewood, a wood waste product combined with recycled binder that is injection molded like plastic and is more sustainable than plastic while allowing much more detail than natural wood. The rulebook is very clear and the reference cards are some of the best we have ever seen. Along with the top-notch components included in the game, you can also pick up a set of metal coins that are really nice.
Yeah, I was super impressed by this rewood thing. Like, that is what CG was most proud of when we were at Gamma. They're like, pick up this piece, look at it, check it out. Here's a magnifying glass. Look at how cool these buildings look. And that's what's used for your buildings, your miners, the score tokens, the round trackers, etc. The detail is really impressive and you know what? Yay, more sustainable products and board games. That's awesome. I actually have zero complaints about the components in this game at all. something I wish I could say more often.
In Kutna Hora, you take on the role of a member of 3 guilds, and you're going to be working to increase your income by building up the city, digging deep into silver mines, and contributing to the construction of St. Barbara's Cathedral. This is point salad, and players will earn points based on their final income through building public buildings, by fulfilling the goals of various patricians, digging deep into the mine, your final town layout, and more. There are a lot of ways to score points in this game.
Now, each round, players take turns selecting their actions from a hand of 2-sided cards, each card showing a pair of different actions. Once a card is used, it won't be available again until the end of the round, and managing this hand of cards is a key part of playing Kutna Hora.
Now, actions follow a flow that just kind of fits the theme of this game well, because this is the time of medieval guilds where there's lots of paperwork to be filled out and bribes to be paid and permits required to do pretty much everything. Each player is also limited to which guilds they can work with, which adds asymmetry to the game. As an example of this, let's look at building a building in Kutna Hora, which is a 3-step process. So first, you need to take the rights action to get the rights to build that specific building. And you can only build buildings for the match the guilds you control of your 3 guilds that are assigned at the beginning of the game. Or you can build a public building, which anyone can build. That's part of why they're public buildings. Now, getting the rights costs money, potentially a bribe, or you have to purchase permits to be able to build this building. Now, once you have the rights, you need a plot of land. So you're going to have to take the plot action and buy a plot of land on the board and paying an amount based on what else is already out there. Now, only now, once you have the rights and you own a plot, can you now take the building action and put that dang building into play, paying the cost in wood. Then you finally get the reward shown on that building tile.
One of the most unique things in Kutna Hora is paying costs and getting income. There are 5 different resources in the game, each represented by a different building, but you never actually collect any resources. They don't physically exist. There are no resource components. Instead, you just pay the current market price for what you need when you need it. And when collecting income, you get coins matching the current goods and the cost of the current goods that you produce. It's very different from pretty much every other resource management game that we've tried out. And the value of goods is changing constantly as the town's prosperity and population increases and as the game goes on.
In addition to the 3-step process of building out the town, other actions in Kutna Hora include getting the income that Deanna just talked about to refresh your coffers, building St. Barbara's Cathedral for sizable in-game bonuses, and going mining. Now, mining, similar to building, is a multi-step process, but it is all done within one action in this case. First, you need an available miner, and if you don't have one, you have to buy a permit to get more workers. Next, you take a number of mine tiles equal to the current mining technology level, and you pick one of those to play. Then you have to pay the wood costs based on where you want to place the tile. Finally, you place your worker, or miner, and get the rewards indicated on the tile.
So while you're doing all these things and these various actions, playing cards and taking actions, the city will be growing and evolving. Almost every action you take will have an impact on the city and the game going forward for not just you, but all of the players. As you build more buildings, goods become cheaper as they flood the market. More people are going to move into the city, but as more people move in, that demand starts to go back up. As the mines expand, the wealth and prosperity of the city increases, driving up the cost of permits and the values of coal and silver. As large public projects are built, patricians move into the city and unlock new scoring opportunities. If players don't build things and wait too long and demand gets too high, the game itself, like the people, will just build a building on their own. Similarly, if you don't actually work to increase that cathedral, the town will get frustrated, raise the taxes for everyone, and build the section themselves.
Now, to keep things fresh, Kutna Hora includes multiple ways to increase replayability. There are variable guild and mine setup cards and optional event cards that you can include in the game to add a random factor. In addition, the building tiles are randomized every game, and the boards are two-sided to accommodate different player counts. Though it is worth noting there is no solo mode to be found here.
All throughout this, you're manipulating and moving the previously mentioned rewood pieces off, on, and along your dual-sided player board, which indicates bonuses, points, and values clearly and easily, as well as giving you a place to stage up to 3 city tiles before you build them.
Honestly, the coolest thing that's going on here is the market. And I don't know if we've accurately described how it is a kind of propped up thing that's easy to see from across the table. And it's got cards slotted behind it. And as time progresses in the game, you swap what cards on top. Like there's a deck and you go through, I think it's 20 before you have to flip it to the opposite side and go through the other side of those 20 cards. And so the one on top is showing, but it's showing through these sliders. And then those sliders move based on how much of something has been produced. So the more food that's produced, then food might be worth a little less. But as the population keeps going up, food might also become worth more. But then as more food is produced, it's going to slide over. And it never goes back or resets in that fashion. It just keeps sliding up until you get sort of to the end. And these cards also keep cycling and changing up what the costs for everything are. It's just the super neat mechanic.
And to me, Kutna Hora is just a fascinating game. Like what CG has basically created here in the 3 designers is a medieval town simulator that actually gives me kind of a sandbox feel. Like you have this empty board with nothing on it. There's not a single building, just a bunch of empty plots of land and an untapped mine. And it's kind of up to you to do what you want with it. This game really feels like I'm having to navigate the politics of various guilds to be able to further my own agenda. And everything takes a few more steps than you really want it to. And you get this little feeling of frustration, but then feeling of accomplishment when you actually manage to pull off something and get rewarded for it. It's one of these games where the mechanics just flow and they're tied to the theme and it just works for me. Like, of course, to build a building, I need the rights to build that building. Then, of course, I need a plot of land. And then it just makes sense the plot of land is going to cost more if it's in a good neighborhood. Hey, especially if it's near a church, you're going to pay a fortune. Then I need the materials to build it. And only then do I get my payoff of an actual building there working part of the town, which then is going to give me resource generation. But now that resource is being generated, it's going to be worth less because now there's more in the market. But thankfully, that building is going to draw more people to the town, so the price will slowly give up. Like that flow of the game, the way it just kind of makes sense, makes the game approachable. And I would say reduces the weight of this game from something heavy, a heavy economic game, to something more medium weight. And I think it's something that a lot of medium weight gamers are going to enjoy, despite the kind of intimidating look and the intimidating sound of this theme.
Totally. It's bureaucracy, so much bureaucracy, and the theming is so tight. When we played this with our kids, the youngest was in a phase where she was just like, eh. First time we hit the table, she's like, I don't really like games right now, but I'll play this one because I want to spend time with you guys. And then she was like, I love this game. And she was also in a phase where she's like, I only like the lightest of party games. And she's like, I love this game. Everything about it just makes sense. I like the way it all makes sense. And I like the way it flows. And she was like totally hooked on it from her first play. When we brought it out last night and played it, and she walked by and saw us playing it, and she was like, oh, I'm so bummed out you didn't ask me to come play. So she actually told me it's one of her favorite games that she's played in the last while. And I would not have thought that because it is on the heavier side, right? But the theming is just so it flows. It all makes sense.
You said this a couple of times tonight. I feel it is really often the case when it comes to CGE games. They are just right on the mark when it comes to matching the mechanics and the gameplay and the theme. And it just makes the experience more smooth, regardless of the actual technical weight of the game.
Now, besides just like flowing well and feeling right, I do really dig that economy, the deck, the card system Deanna described, like more so than any other economic game. The economy feels real. Like it feels like every action you may take in this game impacts that economy. And it's so neatly done where you're going to build a building and you're going to increase your production and then you're going to up this market, but then you're going to draw a new card from the deck, which is going to change it. And the way the holders with the sliders recreate this, it is so well done. And it's just so neat. And there's an element there. I'm sure if you play the game enough, you could memorize the deck, but there's this like element of suspense when you draw the card and you're putting it in. And there's some nice iconography on there. Where like, oh, there's a star. That means the price changed. You're like, oh, did the price of wood go up? And man, that both joy and frustration when the player before you does something and then you either get something cheaper and you're like, woo, cheaper, or it goes up and you're like, dang, I can't even afford to build this now because they made the cost of wood go up. Dang you. I love that feel because it is so neat. And I also like the fact that it represents kind of the feeling and the mood of the populace is represented. Because if you don't build those production buildings, eventually the people get so frustrated to build them on their own, or the opposite. If you build too many food-based businesses, it gets to a point where they won't let you build anymore. The town's like, we've had enough. We don't need any more food. You can't build food anymore. And that's all represented just by these like 2 decks of cards and a funky card holder. I don't even want to know what work went into playtesting those 2 decks and that mechanic. I love that it's there behind the scenes. It just works.
It is just so dang clever. And I love, like you mentioned, how there's just little stars next to them to denote if something did change. So you don't have to go, wait, was it okay? Right away, that's what updated. And I'm sitting there playing and I'm trying to hold off doing something while trying to force the market to go forward. And that second where you flip over that card and you're like, did it? No. All right.
Yeah, the mere thought of the layout of these cards, the number of them, the way they flip and the potential values and changes, how many you need, it would be really easy to have more than you need. Just have too many of them, or have rules for what happens when you run out and you have to reshuffle or flip them. But they have found the limits of so many aspects of this game. So you look at something and think, well, what if I run out? Only to discover that they've already figured that out and you have what you need. You cannot run out, despite the fact that it looks like you might, because there are only so many cards that cause that thing to happen. So you can't. It's just the game is that tightly designed.
Yeah. And we mentioned earlier, I just want to call it again, production quality. My gosh, like this stretches to every aspect of the game. Now I will admit, it's a sign of CGE. I have always appreciated the work that goes into the component quality. It's one of the reasons we love so many other games, and it just all aspects of this. Like the game feels well designed, well play tested. It looks fantastic. It's got great components. They've accounted for the contingencies. This new rewood thing is really great. I hope they've used it in more games. I can't stress enough how great the player aids are. Though I will say, as someone teaching the game, do not give them to players until you fully taught the game, because they look scary. There's so many icons on them in so many different sections. But once you've taught the game, like I have never had to look up something in the rulebook, or while I'm looking it up on the rulebook, Sean will go, oh, that's on the reference card here. Like it's all there. They are fantastic. And the rulebook itself is great, not just for reading through page 1 to page whatever it is. It's also great for reference. It's not one of those ones where I'm flipping back and forth. Every time I have to look something up, I'm like, oh, that's in this section. There it is. All right, here's our answer.
Honestly, I'm leaning more and more towards never giving out player summary cards until the game is about to start after the teach. It really does seem to cause more problems than it solves.
Now, my only complaint about this game, and trust me, this is a minor one. This isn't a huge game breaker in any way, shape, or form. It's kind of how much room it takes up. Now, the way it's designed, it's a long game, but CG even took this into account because the boards are all separate and you can lay them out how you want. So if you have a smaller or square table, you can kind of put the mining board on a separate spot from the top, or sorry, the mining board and the city board are connected, but like you can move the buildings for sale in a different spot and the mining tiles to a different spot. And even the turn tracker can be removed from the board. Like it's not attached and you can put it somewhere else. But if you do set it up in a long row, what I find is that you can't see all the things at once. From where I was sitting in the last game, the cathedral was at the opposite end of the table. And every time I'm like, okay, I've got a pelican, so I could activate that cathedral. What's it do right now? What's it do next turn? And because I know if you have one too, so we might be able to do it. And what's that building do? That said, the icons still aren't terrible. They're still fairly easy to distinguish from each other. I don't think anything in this game is similar colors or similar shapes. The icons themselves all make perfect sense once you read them. You're like, oh, that represents that tile with an arrow, which obviously means take it. I do really appreciate that, but you do have to worry about where you're sitting. And unlike a game we talked about earlier today, this is a game where you may not want to broadcast what you're planning on doing. So it can be a problem when you're saying, hey, what does that red building give? Especially when two different players can build red buildings and you just broadcasted you want to buy it, they might want to steal it from you.
Yeah, so I'm not actually sure it's as big of a problem. You wanted to be at the end for taking pictures, and because you need pictures for for our reviews and such. Had you sat next to DRI on the side of the lengthy layout, I don't know if you would have had any issues at all. Of course, if you have vision issues like D, all bets are off. That's a whole different story.
It's, the very first time we sat down to play this game, I actually went, I am not going to be able to play this. There's no way. Like, at first glance, I thought it was going to be a vision issue game for me, but it's not. It works.
So if you can't tell by everything we said so far, I think I can say for all of us, we all really enjoy Kutna Hora. I love it. Really enjoy Kutna Hora. I think this is now my favorite city building game, and it's way up there as far as economic games go. There's two others that I would put in my top 3, and I'm not quite sure where this fits in there, but it's definitely up there. I just love the flow of the game. I enjoy the decision space. I like making a plan and seeing it work. And I kind of love how punishing the game is when you make a mistake. It can hurt. Mistakes in this game are punishing. And I know that's not for everyone, but it's something I do appreciate in heavier games. What's nice in this, though, is this isn't Food Chain Magnate, right? Like, any mistake you make isn't devastating. You're not ruined. You can, in general, recover. And so far, every game we played, everyone's messed up something at least once. So you're like, oh, yeah, there, you've made your mistake of buying the wrong building, or, oh, you bought the wrong plot. And it feels even. But I got to admit, if someone's able to play through a game without making mistakes, they're probably going to win. But, it's a heavier economic game. They should be able to win if they're able to play without making any mistakes. This is a game that rewards smart and clever play.
So this game is really up there for me. Like, it's in the top. I would really like to sit down and play this again right now. What I love about it is that there's no one right way to play. I've tried different angles, and I've seen other people at the table each going their own way with it. You don't have to go heavy into mining. You don't have to. It's a point salad, but you can diversify, and the game doesn't penalize you for that. I love that. And I love how close our games have been. Mm-hmm. So even though we all go in different ways, there's not one way that they're like, well, like, I can see every time you go mining, that's going to be the one way to win. And I definitely have to change my plan for that because a miner's always in the lead. This is not that game. It is just so well balanced between everything that's going on. And there are a lot of things going on. And I love it for that.
Yeah, it's interesting. My game, when I played in the last round, I made a mistake and bought a tile I didn't need to buy. And I think at the end, I figured out that if I hadn't bought that tile, it would have made a 4-point swing in my final score and pushed me from third to second. Yeah. But if I hadn't bought it, then someone else might have done something differently as well. So it's really,
who knows,
there is
right?
so much integrated things going on. I have to say, though, I am torn about this game because it does some fantastic things. The economy and the way they've done these decks of cards and changing economy is fantastic. The thematic integration, thank you, CGE, is wonderful. Mm-hmm. I just don't care about Central European 14th century history. Doesn't interest me or engage me really at all in the way some themes and genres do. So for that reason, I struggled more with it than someone who was buying fully into the, I'm all in on Euro games. Now, for people who like European historical heavyweight games, I think this is probably a must play.
So we need a sci-fi retheme for you, Sean.
There you go. Sold.
No, I'm serious. Like a sci-fi retheme would work.
You really
like
could.
It's kind of silly, right? We're talking about how tied to theme this is, but I could totally see them repainting this game at the same time,
100%.
which is weird. But I think the whole thing is, and I said this is a city building simulator. It doesn't have to be a 14th C city. It could be a space station,
Sure.
And it would work just as well. And you could be mining xanthine.
You could be mining a meteor, in orbit around the,
Which I said, it's hard to, it's weird to say this game is so well tied to theme, but I could change it to anything. But it's that the theme, though, isn't 14th C Central European. It's city building. Yeah. It's medieval or bureaucratic city building with guilds is really what the theme that it's tied to so well. And I didn't really realize that until talking it out during this review. So I got to say, CG, if you want a thing, like theme this to one of your other games like SETI or Pulsar, and then we'll have Sean loving this game. Yeah, I personally think if you like medium to heavy strategy games, especially if you're not as worried about theme, but the key thing is if you like games where you see an immediate impact for your decisions, where what you choose to do immediately does something that changes the game going forward that affects all players. It doesn't just affect your own chance of winning, but it's going to affect everyone. That's who should love this game. Like that is, to me, the shining part of this game, which is all done through the economy. It's the fact that I built a food building. Suddenly the price of food drops. The taxes go up because whenever you build a food building, the taxes go up. More people move into the city because now there's more food readily available. Like all that happens in this game. And I think that is amazing for a city building game that is about as far away as multiplayer solitaire as you can get, because everyone's decisions impact everyone else going forward. I love that. This is, and it's such a different way to have player interaction. It's not the player action where I'm backstabbing or I'm trading resources or I'm handing you things. It's the what I did is going to change what you're going to do. And I love it for that.
Yeah. So if economic games scare you, if the thought of playing Kanban gives you night sweats, don't be too afraid of Kutna Hora. As long as you don't mind some math when adding up your income. Like the only time we wanted to pull out a calculator was the end game scoring, because you had to do 27 ore times 7 price or whatever it might have been. That's the only math going on. All of the economic manipulation that happens in this game is done behind the scene, managed by this brilliant card and slider system. All you have to do is worry about adapting your plans to those changing values once the game works out what that new value is.
Yeah, to me, Kutna Hora is like a medieval town simulator, and I love it. What I want to know is, what's a game that feels to you like a solid simulation, a game that kind of gives you that feeling of taking part in something where you feel you can do what you want and you can explore, but your choices have an impact on what happens next.
Let us know by posting a comment wherever you found this review, sending us an email, a direct message, or better yet, by posting something on the Tabletop Bellhop Discord, which you can find at discord.tabletopbellhop.com.
In Portugal, you can find world-famous restaurants called Casa de Fado, or House of Fado, where people come to dine and listen to the trio of musicians play what has come to be known as Fado music. Here, people get a table and stay until closing. And now, House of Fado by Eagle-Gryphon Games gives you a chance to try your hand at running such an establishment.
This thematic strategy game comes from the designers Vital Lacerda and Zao Martins and features striking artwork from Mariana Costa, who is a well-known Portuguese artist. It's actually a follow-up to Vital's previous title, The Gallerist, which is also from Eagle-Gryphon Games. Now, Eagle-Gryphon handed us a copy of this lighter game while at the Atom Gamers Retreat earlier this year, so thank you, Eagle-Gryphon. Now, House of Fado is intended to be a much lighter, more accessible implementation of the mechanics from The Gallerist, which we should note, none of which we've actually played. None of us have tried The Gallerist. Be aware, though, I don't want people to think this is like The Gallerist for kids or The Gallerist Light. This is a standalone game, and despite being lighter, does have some weight to it.
For example, House of Fado plays rather quickly, with most games taking an hour, maybe a bit more for your first learning game. It plays up to 4 players, and we found it to be rather easy to learn because of just how well the mechanics tie into the theme of running a Fado restaurant. Everything just makes sense here.
The reduced weight of this game extends to the game box, which is quite small for an Eagle-Gryphon game. The component quality isn't diminished at all, though, as this game features a very striking board, tiles with a unique and intriguing art style, thick cardboard components, custom dice, wooden meeples and other tokens, a cloth bag, and a plastic game tray box inserts that hold everything nicely, with everything nicely sorted to make setup and takedown quick and easy. The rulebook is excellent and great for learning the game and referencing when needed.
Just a quick correction. It's not a game trays insert. It's just a plastic tray insert.
He just meant it is a game tray insert.
Yes.
He didn't mean game trays.
No trademark
branded.
there. No trademark.
Yes.
No trademark. Just to clear that up. So House of Fado is a worker placement game with a very cool bumping system, which actually comes from the game The Gallerist. That's where this mechanic first was introduced by Vital. The board's divided into 4 locations, and each has 1 or 2 worker placement spots. And each of these has like 3 sub spots, which are called kickout spaces. So when you place a worker onto a spot, you immediately activate the appropriate actions, just like every other worker placement game out there already. Where things get interesting, though, is when you go to place a worker on a spot someone else is on. Unlike many worker placement games, the spot's not blocked. Instead, you bump or kick out the worker that's there, and they drop to one of the sub spots, the choice being made by the player who's been bumped. Then they immediately get a reward for getting bumped. Now, everyone only has 3 workers in this game, and pretty soon into the game, on your third action, probably all your workers are going to be on the board, so you're going to have to move existing ones to take new actions, which usually has players moving from one to kick-out spot to a standard spot. Now, a couple things to keep in mind for the system that are important are you cannot place into a spot where you already have a worker, whether it's in a kick-out spot or a main spot, and you can't place a worker if there's nowhere to bump someone. If all 3 kick-out spots are taken, you can't take that main action until there's a spot freed up.
So what are you doing with all these workers? Well, first off, you can head to the musicians market to hire musicians for your restaurant. And those come in 3 types: classical guitar, singers, and Portuguese guitar players. The cost to hire a musician is based on their experience level. Bumping actions here include getting money and patrons to come sit at the bar in your restaurant. Now, bar patrons don't eat, so they don't give you income, but they do applaud your musicians and increase their level.
Your next option is to head out on the street and promote your restaurant, attracting customers. At the start of the game, you only have 2 tables, one for 2 patrons and one for 3, but you can unlock a 4th by raising your prestige. Customers are color-coded based on the type of musician that they prefer, which matters when trying to level up your musicians. While on the streets, you can also hire a critic to come visit your restaurant. They don't pay, they don't clap, and they take up an entire table, but they do raise your reputation. The kick-out spots here are award money or musical notes.
Now, you want musical notes, as one of the things that makes for a good Fado restaurant is the selection of songs your musicians know. Well, you can increase your repertoire by going to the rehearsal room. Here you can purchase musical notes or trade in sets of notes matching the face-up song patterns, which all award you instant victory points. You're also going to get points at the end of the game for the size of your repertoire. Now, kick-out spots here give you money or let you pay to increase the level of your musicians.
The final main board location is the billboard. Here, you get to promote one of your current musicians by having them play out on the street. This gains you victory points and also lets you take part in an endgame majority scoring opportunity. The trick here is that the musician you promote has got to be better than the one that's already out there playing. Alternatively, instead of promoting a musician, you can hire one of the musicians on display and move them into your restaurant. The kick-out spots here award notes, bar patrons, or money.
Now, there is one final worker placement spot in the option in House of Fado, and that's closing down your restaurant for the night. Here, you get income from the patrons at your tables based on your current reputation, and then everyone claps for your entertainers, letting you raise their levels. After this, you have the option of letting musicians go, gaining points for their current levels, or keeping them on for another night. Now, since this action is on each player's personal restaurant board, there is no kick-out action here. No one else is going to take your spot.
Yeah. Now, while doing all of this, players are working to earn stars. The first player to reach the top of the reputation track earns a star. First time a musician of each type hits level 6, they become a superstar. They'll no longer play in anyone's restaurant if they've gone on for global fame, and earns the person who got them there a star. First player to complete 3 songs in the rehearsal room earns a star. And the game ends at the end of the round. 3 stars have been claimed in total.
Which always happens quicker than you think it's going to.
Yes.
Now, this should surprise no one because it's a Vital Lacerda game. House of Fado is a bit of a point salad. Players will be earning points, fame, in-game every time they let a musician go, and whenever they collect a new song. At the end of the game, you're going to earn points for the rank of your current musicians, for Billboard majorities, and for the amount of songs you've completed and the stars you've collected.
Now, this is one of those games where the mechanics are designed to really fit the theme. The actions you're taking are the type of actions that an owner of a House of Fado would be taking. There's a realistic flow here that makes the game very easy to pick up, learn, and remember. And where I find it really shines is when I have some downtime between plays of House of Fado, I tend to pick it back up very quickly. Like, you start off, you're going to probably hire a musician or two, but you're not going to have enough money to get a full band, and you're going to have to rely on the house musicians, which are musicians that are printed on the board that can't level up. You probably are going to get you by with that for your first couple closings. You're going to always try to fill your place with patrons, and you're going to try to get the patrons that match the musicians you want to show off. Musicians are really easy to level up when they're just getting started. You just need a couple of fans, but like to get them to those upper levels, you're going to need whole tables clapping for them. Sometimes you just don't have the money, so you're going to have to close up shop early so that you can better afford to do things the next day. You can't forget practice and learning new songs, because you will fall behind if you don't do some research into the music school. It just, I don't know, feels right? It just feels like the right kind of actions you're going to do. And each individual action here is dead simple. It's like pay money to hire someone, grab some meeples that are on the board and put them on your player board. Like, nothing is complicated. I think everything in the game is a single step. Put a worker, do a single thing, done. And one of the things I do want to point out, though, is the game's also not scripted. I don't want to make it sound like you're going to go hire a musician, then you're going to go to this spot and get people to sit at your tables. Then you're going to go close your restaurant so those people will pay. It's definitely not that. There's enough different things going on in different valid strategies. And actually, I've seen people try a lot of different strategies and focus on different things, and they all seem valid, except for you can't focus on one thing. That definitely doesn't seem to work on this game. You're going to have to balance your different actions.
I think the fact that you can explore and try to run your restaurant in your own way is part of the comfort of this game. You're not trying to figure out the optimal path from turn 1 to look ahead and plan out every move in a chess-like tree. That's not an option. You're just going to move through each day trying to do the best you can for your restaurant.
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes me love this game so much is how easy it is to teach. Because of the theming and the flow, when you explain it to people, it just makes sense. And you tend to remember the various options and how they work together because of that theming. It just all makes sense. Mm-hmm. And because I can easily teach it to people and I feel comfortable teaching it to people, I can get it to the table more. And I like that.
Now, the other thing I want to call out is that kick-out worker placement system. It's really cool. I know it comes from the Gallerist, and bad on us for not having played the Gallerist. Honestly, there was a year we were going to pick it up at Origins, but I grabbed Vinhos Deluxe instead. I don't regret that decision. I love Vinhos Deluxe, but I kind of wished I'd grabbed both. This is just like, to me, this is new. Like, I didn't get to experience this mechanic until now, and I love it. I worker placement where you're booting people out, and there's some really hard decisions because those kick out rewards can be very valuable. This is a game with an extremely tight economy. You never have enough money. And bumping someone out of a spot, because almost all the kick out spots have an option to get money, bumping someone out to give them that one coin they can now use to afford the next musician, and you're like, oh, is it worth it? Like, I'll get the people, the silver meeples into my thing that'll clap for everyone. But if I do it, that'll mean Sean can complete. Oh, I love the decision points in this, like that tree. It's so fascinating. Honestly, like the biggest thing that did was now I need to go get the Gallerist and I need to try it in a bigger, heavier game.
I love the decision points around the kick out, but what I also love is how it really keeps you engaged on other people's turns. You're constantly going, oh, what's going on? People are not phasing out and looking at their phones while playing House of Fado. You are actively engaged in the game consistently because of the kick out mechanics. And I love that.
So because we've been talking about this so much, I had to go and check. So I went and I got the rule book for the Gallerist and read through. So I do not pretend to understand how the Gallerist plays, but I do know exactly what the kick-out mechanic in that game is because it's really simple. And the similarity is a lot less than we may be indicating here.
Okay.
If you get to do, if you are in a place and someone else wants to do that thing, you get a choice of 2 actions that you can do before you go home. So the kick out is you're literally being kicked out and sent home. But there is a kick out spot where you get a choice of 2 actions you can do. And it's always the same. There are only 2 actions in every kick out thing. It's either do this or do this before you go home as you're being kicked out of the location. So there's a significant difference. I actually think that House of Fado has a more interesting mechanic because of what Mo was just saying about that thought process. Oh, if I do this, he might be able to get that coin. He might. Whereas everyone knows, exactly what 2 options are available every time you kick anyone out of any spot in the Gallerist.
That's fascinating. I'm still super curious to try it out though.
So what you have there is our recommendation for anyone who likes the Gallerist to still give House of Fado a try. Absolutely. Because it does interesting new things with the kick-out mechanic.
Yeah, it's an evolution of the more, I would call it, basic kick-out mechanic. I mean, there's nothing basic about the Gallerist. It is definitely a weighty game. Even just going through the rule book scared me a little bit. But
all right. The other thing I want to highlight about House of Fado for me is what I'm going to call bang for your buck. This game gives you a lot of bang for your buck. And I'm not talking price of the game here. This is different. This is a more ephemeral thing about the gameplay. This is a quick game. You can play in about an hour, less once you have experienced players. And I'm not joking. I'm not extrapolating. You are getting a lot of game in that time frame filled with interesting decisions, having to adapt what other players are doing. And it's highly interactive. And like Deanna called, you're paying attention because you're waiting for that bump. You're totally paying attention to what the other players are doing and trying to plan ahead based on what they're doing, going, I am not going to move that meeple because I know next turn you're going to have to hire patrons because you've got no one at your tables. I'm going to bump. And when I get bumped, I'm going to get that thing. This is the kind of feeling I tend to get from big games, like bigger games from Vital, probably the Gallerist, but my example would be Vinhos Deluxe that I mentioned earlier. I get that same rewarding feel of a big game where I built something and I ran engines and I completed things in a ridiculously manageable playtime in today's modern board game sphere. Under an hour is such a sweet spot to be able to have a game with this many interesting decisions and rewards. And there's not a lot of set up and takedown. That earlier mentioned box insert's actually surprisingly good, and keeps everything sorted. So I can just be like, here's your pieces, here's your pieces, here's your pieces, put up the board. It is quick to set up and take down, which this is a heavier game that's going to hit the table more often because of that playtime and that setup speed.
And that's one of the reasons I love it, because it is a heavier game that I can actually get to the table. That's exactly it. One of the other things I really love about this game is I enjoy games that make me think and learn something. And I had no clue what a House of Fado was, like none. And I've never been to Portugal. And I was curious about it because of this game. And it made, first off, there's a good write-up in the book that explains things. And then it made me want to go online and find Fado music and listen to Fado music. And like that's just like an entire interesting thing that I wouldn't have gotten into aside from having been introduced to it via this game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was definitely, at the moment we sat down and started talking about this, I was Googling Fado music and trying to figure things out. But back to what Mo was saying, again, the speed of this game is really shocking. I mean, it's only a medium weight game. It's currently listed as 2.8. That may actually be a little on the low side, but that's because I think people are misrepresenting the weight due to the speed. The fact that you get medium heavyweight game, let's call it a 3, done in under an hour is really shocking. It makes you want to play the game because you're not sitting down for a long slog play. But you're still getting that meaty experience from a lot of games that are, an hour and a half, 2 hour long slog of a game.
Yeah, this falls under the rule of the best game is one that gets to the table.
Yep.
So one of the things we obviously like to do when reviewing any game is to let people know who may not enjoy the game. Now, as far as House of Fado goes, I think this is going to be anyone who prefers lighter games that don't require a lot of thought, that don't require a lot of strategy and planning ahead. People who prefer to play games for fun and reactions and laughs, rather than people who are to see board gaming as more of a competition. This is definitely a game where you are trying to outplay the other people at the table. This is an Eagle-Gryphon game, after all, right? It's a heavier. I know we keep saying medium, but for compared to what games your average family plays, this is a heavier strategy game, including people like I would put this significant step above, say, even Catan and people who play family weight games. Just because you can play it in an hour and left does not make this fun light romp. And I actually worry some people are going to avoid the game because, like, oh, you can play it in 45 minutes. Well, I'm not going to get the meat I want. But if you don't want that meat, I also didn't think this game's going to be for you. If people are going on Board Game Geek and sorting games by playtime, are like, oh, this plays in under an hour. Let's have a quick fun running a restaurant game. I don't think that's going to be right for you. I think this is now it is the things that make this like the game that Deanna and I like and enjoy, and that decision space, all of those things that I think are amazing about this game may be a turnoff for another group.
It has all the meat I want. It practically says for Deanna in writing on the box.
Interestingly, though, as much as Mo is against this, I personally think this may depend on your game group because I am the type of player who this game could be a real turnoff for. I don't have any deep love or connection to Portuguese dining or music. This game is on the heavier side, but I really did enjoy playing it in large part because of that quick, tight gameplay. I think where it would fall apart is if you have the wrong mix of heavy gamers and light gamers, because they're going to impact each other's enjoyment of the game. So if you can sit down with a group of lighter gamers, not light gamers, because again, this game's got some meat to it, but with people more like me who are into that midweight game, the 2.5s, we can all enjoy this game. Absolutely. We just might not want to play it with people who love Kanban as a, lifestyle game.
Now, where I really do think this game could stand out, though, is a gateway to heavier games, specifically other Vital Lacerda games. Honestly, Eagle-Gryphon, most of their catalog, their non-party game catalog. Because one of the big things that scares gamers away from heavier games is that time commitment required. And House of Fado pretty much eliminates that as a hurdle. They still give people a taste of that delicious, thinky, heavy gameplay in a manageable, almost bite-size taste.
That shorter time play and the easy teach, I think it makes it the perfect gateway to something heavier. Yes. Although I hesitate to say gateway game. It is not a gateway game. It's several steps down the path.
But at the same time, you could actually be a little bit of bait and switch because, again, as you get into those heavier games, in many cases, you start to get a little thinner on the theming and the theme interaction, whereas this game is so well integrated with the theme. You feel that effort and putting into, you want to have your restaurant succeed versus you want to have more of points from area X on the board.
Yeah, if I haven't made that clear, I love everything about this game. This is like my favorite game of the year. Go play it. The end.
Now, I don't quite put it in Game of the Year category. Sorry, Vital, Zon, and Eagle-Gryphon, but this is one of the best games I have played in last year. I got to say, like, I have enjoyed this every time I hit the table. I really dug that first play at Adam 2025. I've found I enjoy it even more each time I played. One of the things I really do enjoy is exploring in this game and trying different strategies and seeing different ways to get points. And my general goal each game is to collect different sets of stars. So, one game I might focus on. What I haven't tried yet is leveling up. I need to play a game where I try to grab all 3 stars for leveling up my people. Haven't tried that strategy yet, but I like that I can do that I can have the fun. I've got to thank Eagle-Gryphon, along with Queen Games and Inside Up Games, for inviting us to Adam and introducing us to this great game, along with many others. Our next step, obviously, is to try the Gallerist as soon as we get through the pile of obligation.
So at this point, when we're recording this, it's mid-October. And as I just mentioned, I think I can comfortably say that House of Fado is my game of the year. What about you? What's your favorite game of 2025 so far? Let us know in the comments, as a reply, a DM, an email, or over on our Discord.
Tonight has been filled with lots of talk of heavy games. The one thing that helps us deal with brain burn is plenty of delicious hot coffee. You can hook us up and support the show by heading to tabletopbellhop.com/coffee. Well, that was the double bell.
That means our shift's coming to an end, and we're going to have to lock the lobby doors on this odd Friday night shift.
Before we start locking things down, let's take a moment to thank a selection of our Tabletop Bellhop Patreon patrons, all of whom are awesome.
Thank you very much, Kator.
Jeff and Sheila Seuss, thank you.
Jeff Farbman, thanks, Jeff.
Ron F., thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Joe Swick.
Brian Van Beek, thank you, Brian. Well, while this podcast is wrapping up, you can always find us at tabletopbellhop.com, all over the web as Tabletop Bellhop, one word. Be sure to subscribe on your podcatcher of choice to never miss an episode. And while there, be sure to leave us a review.
So we are the Dear Abby of tabletop games, and that works best when we've got lots of questions ready to be answered. Get your question in by heading to the website and clicking on Ask the Bellhop, sending an email to questions@tabletopbellhop.com, or hitting us up on one of those social media accounts.
And I've got some homework for y'all. Now that you've finished this episode, we want you to share it with someone else. Introduce a friend, family member, or fellow gamer to our podcast, or toss them a link to the blog.
That's all for us tonight.
For the Tabletop Bellhop Gaming Podcast, I'm Sean.
I'm Deanna.
And I'm Mo.
Thank you.
And
game on.